Good evening and welcome to the public hearing for the Limerick Charter Commission. Good evening, everyone. Thanks to everyone who has given input, comments, and expressed their opinions on the charter for the town of Limerick. Members of the commission have been busy at work since April of 2023. The members of the commission have devoted countless hours to developing this document. This evening is the third public hearing to receive additional comments on the document. We thank, once again, those who have spoken out. We've followed the recommendations, the 15 recommendations of the process for putting together a charter, and I'm just going to review those recommended procedures. First one was to select board was to determine the adoption of a charter, and they did that. The second one was within 30 days of adoption of the order, the select board adopts the order submitting the question for establishment of a charter at the next regular special meeting. We've done that. The town has completed that. Step 3 was the election of the commission members. Must be either at the same election or a vote of the Charter Commission questions at the scheduled regular meeting. We've done that. Select board appoints 3 members. So 6 members were voted on by the public and 3 were appointed by the Board of Selectmen. As soon as the board appoints those 3 members, the town clerk must notify all elected and appointed officials, and that was done. The commission may adopt regulations. Those were done, and those are part of all the documentation. Step 7 was the commission will hold a public meeting to receive information within 30 days. We did that. That was complete. When the commission holds hearings, it must give at least 10 days notice. We've done that at both newspapers and posting online and conspicuous places around town. The commission was to prepare a preliminary report within 9 months. We've have a preliminary report up online to include a proposed text of the charter, and such explains the material in the document that the commission considers appropriate. Step 10, the commission must submit the final report to the select board within 12 months after the election, and report should include full text and explanation of the charter, comments if desired by the commission, written opinion from an attorney, contains anything prohibited by the U.S. or the Maine Constitution or by statute, and a minority report if somebody wants to provide a minority report. So those steps are still in process. We still have a few steps more to go, including tonight's taking some comments from the people that are in the room here tonight. So if you want to speak, there is a sign-up sheet there. That is a document who is here. So if you're going to speak, please sign that. The sign-up sheet there right next to the Dottie. So, would anybody, I think you were the first one, Cheryl. Did you want to speak?
As we go through.
As we go through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions on different articles.
Okay, so what is the questions that you have? That's what...
I would just start with, do you have, I would just start with, read the article.
All right. Sorry.
There's several, well, starting with
Just tell us what the number is. And
2.2,
2.2.
2.11,
Okay, all right.
222.
All right, start with the first one.
Okay.
Go, start with the first one. Go from the front of the document to, so what's the first one, Cheryl?
2.11.
2.11. Go ahead.
The board will appoint the town manager. Are there any criteria on the town manager? You know, like when you apply for a job, you have to fill in all the spaces and you have to be appropriately,
Sure.
you know, is that?
That is a job, that's the job of the selectmen, the select board, to draft up a job description.
Okay, that would be done, and then it's circulated, and you have applicants to come in for the job itself.
Yep.
Okay. The town manager, if I know this right, appoints town clerk, tax collector, treasurer, everybody except for the board members?
Not until after this passes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. If this passes, then the board will hopefully have that job description already, and
So that takes the voting of some of the town officials out of the voters' hands. I
No.
mean, we have voted for years for the town clerk, tax collector, the
Right.
whole bit. And this will just take it, we have no say who we want, it'll just be hired
There
if
would-
this passes.
If this passes, those individuals will fill out their term. So they're a staggered term, so they'd fill out their term.
Yep.
And then they would, if they wanted to keep their job, they would apply again. And then the best person would be selected for that position.
But it's still not like the people electing somebody, like they're gonna elect the board.
That's correct.
That's gonna,
That's
the
correct.
charter will take that out of the people's hands.
That's correct.
And that's not good. Town meeting, are we going to start having an annual town meeting again?
That would be for the board to determine.
Oh, this being in 2.2 doesn't mean that it's gonna, it says the annual town meeting on a Friday, and down further it says it's gonna be on the second Friday of the month. You know, voting on Friday, what we used to do. If the charter passes, that goes in automatically. Okay.
So just give me the numbers that you're talking about.
We're still on 222, okay? Now, C. The warrant, there's several places in here where it says that you have to have 3 board members sign something. We have 5 board members. So if 3 board members are sufficient, why can't we just have 3 instead of 5?
You want to address that?
Could you state that question again? I'm sorry. Could you state that again? I'm sorry.
Oh, several places throughout this, it says at least 3 members of the board have to sign something to make it legal or whatever. You don't have to have all 5.
No, you do
Well,
not.
why don't we go back to the 3 instead of the 5? Make it a lot simpler, because if we have a town manager, we won't need 5. If
In
this
order
passes.
so at a regular meeting, when there are 5 board members, 3 it has to be affirmative vote of 3 or no in order for something to either pass or fail. Specifically, it's talking about if they don't meet, say they meet in every other week, and they need the warrants to be signed, they have to have at least 3 members of the board sign the warrant. Is basically what it's saying. So, in any governmental system, if you have 5 or 10, 9 or 11, the quorum is the ones that make the deciding factor, whether it be 4, 5, 7 people that makes that decision.
But having 5, it's not always 5. We'll have sometimes 3, sometimes 4. Just a
Right,
question. That
right.
can be put in front of the voters, correct, to have it changed back if they so choose to vote? With a warrant, is that?
Within the charter being 5 members, you would have to have a charter review and then have a new commission to put it forth to the voters to change.
The charter is going to be voted on in March?
November.
November. November. We're not
Yes.
going to do our annual meeting.
It will go on the,
Okay.
Yep.
That's going through quickly. All right, that does that one and that one. 2.31, that's the same thing as board hiring instead of people voting for it. So that's kind of duplicate. And okay, I'll let somebody take over and I'll go
Okay,
further on.
thank you.
Steve McLean. It seems I didn't have a chance to get through the whole thing, but there's one article in there about changing that a member of the select board cannot be a member of the fire department, rescue department.
that's correct.
So the question is, the people in, twice I think in the last 3 years, have voted to allow that.
Correct.
So what's the big change now?
What's the big change now?
Well, I'm saying the people voted twice now in the last 3 years to have
You
that.
can vote, you
Now the
can-
charter commission wants to change that. I'm wondering what all of a sudden came up, you know,
Well,
the shortage of EMS people we have and everything else. And, you know, my suggestion, if you want to put it in there that they can't be a chief officer, that's fine. But for a guy to pick up a couple of per diem shifts to help us out when we're short-handed, help us out when we're short-handed, should be able to do that.
So let me address that issue. First of all, I looked at, myself and others on this commission, looked at several towns that had, they did not allow for employees of the town, regardless of what your what you were, whether you're a secretary, whether you're in the fire department, whether you're EMS, whatever, to be on the Board of Selectmen and plus earn compensation at the same time. So the way the article or the ordinance is written now, that was passed, it gives an exception to the fire department.
Right.
Well, what about the rest of the employees? Isn't that a discriminatory?
Change the article for them.
This,
The point I'm making is twice now, the people have said yes, that somebody
And so
can
they
be
get-
on the fire and rescue department.
So they get an
Okay?
opportunity
So
to
you're going
vote on it
against the
again.
voice of the people the last 2 or 3 times, the people have said, I think there was twice that we did it. Well, even if, I'll look it up, but even if I don't find it, people just voted 2 years ago to do that. Okay, that's fine, that's my argument, right? If you wanna come to the podium, you come up, address that, okay? That, I'm just saying, I think we're shooting ourselves, some of these bigger towns, that's fine, all right? They have full-time people. We rely on per diem people, all right? Which is just per diem people, okay? And you're cutting that out, you know? And I just think that you gotta seriously think about the shortage right now of EMS fire people, all right? So we're gonna tell, in our case, a 21-year-old youngster that decided, hey, I'm gonna help out, be a select person, all right? And you're saying, well, make a choice. And I don't think you ought to be telling somebody to make their choice, right? First of all, as the per diem person there, a non-office or anything else, he cannot adjust his pay. He cannot vote for a pay increase, any of that, okay? You still got 5 selectmen. Even if he wanted to, there's 4 others saying, what are you doing, okay? So I think we're kind of jumping the gun. Some of the other towns, like I said, you take a Waterboro, they have full-time employees, okay? We're per diem based, okay? And we're short. And I think it's a shame that you're gonna cut that out. I think some thought should be into that thing. instead
There
of
was
cutting
thought
out.
put into it.
Well, I don't think
and
there was
there-
enough. I think you should.
No, there was thought put into it, and you put a person, let's say the treasurer cannot run for the select board member, why? Answer that question.
Treasurer's a full-time position.
Has
We can
has nothing to do with full-time. Has nothing to do with that. It's keeping, number one, keeping that individual safe from, possible, let's say extortion, embezzlement. They
How can a
cannot be their
person on the
own
fire
boss.
department do
They should not be their own boss, number two. And you have other employees in this town that have been excluded from that opportunity to become a select board member. Also, the article, when it was written, when it was re-voted on, means that there could be 5 members of on this board, all fire department or EMT individuals. People don't like that. People don't like to see a, let's call it corporate mentality over the town. I would want to have different individuals from different areas to do
I'll
it.
differ with you,
And
but the
that's-
people voted to allow that.
They allowed it they voted to allow it.
So why
But
don't you
was
put it-
it
put it
more,
in-
was it explained to them in detail the ramifications from someone being on this board and being an employee? I don't personally, this is my own personal opinion. We all voted to put it into this charter, and right now, I'm having an argument over this, and I'm not going to this.
Well, it's fine. I'm just saying, we need people. You can put a thing in there if you want. No more than 2 select people can be on the fire. I think it's ridiculous, all right, that we're gonna exclude somebody that can help the town out in 2 ways. All right, we don't have people running for select people. We don't have enough people up at the fire station, okay? And now we're saying, oh, you gotta choose. I just think it's wrong, and I just think you ought to, before you do this, it'd be a shame to lose the whole charter over something like that, so.
Steve, I had How many of the EMTs now are Limerick residents?
Probably 3 or 4, that's all we got.
Excuse me.
Here we are, we're gonna eliminate somebody that's around, you know what I mean? And,
Well, number one, the one that's on there that's a selectman is not gonna be thrown off. I mean, he's not gonna be fired. He's grandfathered. He was voted in when the ordinance allowed him to be. So he's not gonna get thrown off.
yeah, but if we have somebody else in the future that comes along, they can't do it. Well, I just think you ought to rethink it.
But you've also got to remember that, all I keep hearing is, if you have it for one, you gotta have it for everybody. It's not fair. You're discriminating against certain people.
Well, let them people come up and address that situation. No one's come up and addressed that, okay? I mean, it can be
It's been
worked
voted
out.
on 3 times that you can't be a town employee and be a selectman.
Right.
It's been voted on 3 times, not once, but 3 times.
The initial part of that was have another full-time position in the town. That's what it was aimed at when it was created.
What it says.
Well, that's what it was aimed at. We all know how it started.
It's not what it says.
It was a citizen's petition to have that.
A person doing the,
I can't run for selectman.
she can't run,
I work
We've
an hour a week.
We've discussed that, we know that, that's fine, but that should be addressed, all right? But we're not, yeah, we're eliminating everything, yeah, that's not smart.
It actually is smart, because it's time to do it, right? When this has come up before, it's always involved a single person, a personality, somebody's sitting there in the seat, they've gotten on whether they should have been or not. We've tweaked the personnel policy to try to make it work over time, and that's not the right way to handle it. It's time to just cut this, right? And the only way to cut it is to cut it fair and say, no employees. You can't single out fire department employees from transfer station employees from camera people. I mean, if it's the only way to just finally cut it, make it fair, and make it work. And, you know, if that means that there's a person that wants to do double duty, well, they're gonna have to choose. And that's just tough, you know, part of life, right? You gotta make a choice. You feel more comfortable as a select person, or do you wanna work on the fire EMS or at the transfer station or film? But because this is constantly in the past involved,
for years.
like I said, it's like an actual, you know, when it's an actual person, it's a little different, right? There's a name, there's a face, there's a personality, and we've moved this around, and like I said, tweaked it to try to make it fit a specific person too many times. And this is the best way to cut it clean and make it fair.
When I was on the board the last time, the first or second year, a vote went out to eliminate employees being on the board, because on the board, there were 2 employees. And it was as you said, it was a personality thing. A petition was taken out, and it was voted not to be allowed on the board because you're an employee. So it has to be fair across the board.
Needs to be cut clean and made fair.
Judy?
I agree with Steve. I have to say, because it's been voted on and it's an ordinance, is it something we can leave as an ordinance and go back to at a later date instead of putting it in the charter and, like Steve said, risking the charter being voted down just because people aren't understanding that specific item?
Is it an actual ordinance? Was it written as an actual ordinance? Did Natalie deem it as an ordinance?
Well, that's when we were voting to put it on to
In this-
the election, there was communication with the attorney. She said we had to take the original ordinance, so I would say yes.
So charter will supersede that ordinance.
That's why I'm asking, can we take it off of the charter, keep it as an ordinance, and vote to change that ordinance later instead of changing it through the charter, which, as you said, is a long process?
it's a long process. The person that we're talking about in the position of the select board
Right.
will remain on that board until his term is up, and then someone else will be voted in to take that place.
Right.
The opinion of the commission was to make it fair is to remove.
And I agree. I agree that it makes sense to, if there wasn't someone in the fire department on the select board now, fire EMS, it wouldn't be an ordinance, it wouldn't be a discussion. Across the board, we would say, we're not discriminating against anybody because it just does need to be fair. But there is, and it has been voted on, and it can be changed in ordinance easier than on a charter. And I don't think it's worth the risk to vote. I think that the
I
charter would
don't
be
feel
voted down
that
for it.
there's a risk all the way around in this
I agree.
charter. In the charter, there's risks all the way through it, because some people are gonna like some things,
Right.
and they're going, because they don't like that one particular thing,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably gonna vote it down. Because they like another particular thing, they're probably gonna vote it up.
Right.
So it's a chance that you have
It
to
is.
take, and then you have to say, now, you could go out and take a survey of people. Why did you vote the charter down? What are your specific reasons for voting it down?
And
Because I
get a
can
new
sit
charter
here,
commission and start this process over again.
right,
Right. I just think that this specifically is too fresh to be putting in because it's a topic we've had over the last 2 years.
for myself personally, I'm not gonna speak for the rest of the board, that I feel others in the past there's been an injustice done to them.
Yep.
And it was voted, that was the second time it was voted on, when those people were removed, or any employee, you could not be an employee of the town. Now you've done a reverse injustice to those same individuals by allowing that individual, any individual, I'm not talking about the person, I'm talking about a position.
Yeah. And it's good to bring all of that up. I think it's valuable to understand if we're going to keep it in the charter, definitely. I just think that it would be easier to change the ordinance.
Thank you.
So just to make it clear, if the charter passes, no employee can be on the board. If it doesn't pass, it's a biased, it's a policy. I don't believe it was written as an ordinance. It's a policy, which can be changed at any time, but the board chooses to have the townspeople vote on some of these policies. But because of the way that last one, allowing the fire department on there, I can still run again if I want, because you can't stop me from doing it, because you can't say somebody in the fire department can run and I can't. So, just want to make that clear.
Steve McLean. So Joanne, you're saying grandfathered, all right? Now Wendy just turned around and said when his selectman term is up, he can't run again. That's not grandfathered. So,
No, I'm talking about this term.
right,
Term.
right, so,
We can't be fired for the rest
right,
of this
but
term.
then he can't run as selectman if he wants to be on in a couple of years whenever his term is up. So that's different than being grandfathered.
Corley?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for the effort you put in to come up with the document. Reading it over, I didn't realize how ignorant I was of town politics, for one thing. But this is packed with a lot of stuff. And, it's a pivotal issue for the town. And I tried to, I'd like to get some clarification on a few points. I tried to figure out the ramifications of the community with this. We're a community of about 3,200 people. There's 6,600 people, 66 people on the payroll. So, we've just gone through the big asset with a firehouse, and we're going through tax assessments, and, we look at infrastructure. We look at different departments pushing for different things. So this is big. I think it's really big. I don't grasp it all, don't propose to, but I've tried to, focus on a few things, and for clarification. So first off, Article 3, which is doesn't have a page on it, but must be page 6, because 7 is next. If I'm in the right thing here.
Article 3? Article
Sorry?
3? Article 3? Article 3?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So in the compensation on this, how it reads here, the compensation for board members. Well, just like you people, you spend a lot of time and effort, commitment, trying to get the vision of the town. And it seems to me that the board members, have to come up with a fair compensation. When you implement this thing, it's, like I said, it's packed with a lot. And if you break it down and you try to measure it in time, it's a big demand on individuals. And as far as this thing about, who can be on and who can be off, the reason I think for that, the whole concept, it's a big thing in human nature. Because you start getting forces for individual ideas, you start pushing certain agendas, and it becomes a problem for the town. Next thing you know, the town is really isolation from who's making all the decisions in their life. And so therein lies the problem. So that's why I think they want clear lines. And as far as a 5-board member, I wasn't for that in the beginning, but I see the merit of it because, like you said, if you can't get a full quorum, you need decisions, you've got to have 3 people, so consequently it's 5. But getting back to the compensation thing, you've got a chairman and a vice chair right below that. And so to me it seems, what I've seen, and what I've got snippets of information is, to come up with a fair plan, and I don't know who's going to do this, or how that gets enacted. There's a lot of things in here that just are like open-ended. Oh, a town manager, whether it be he or she, is going to be the magic person. Well, they're human beings, and they've got their own visions and goals for their life, and this is probably a stepping stone toward their ultimate goals in life. So, and they're going to have their own personal agenda, whether you see it or not. I'm sure that's going to happen. But anyway, so the compensation for board members, the scope of the responsibilities, to me, different roles that are played. You have different level of responsibilities. You have different time commitments. I've seen it. John has taken over, I think, in many instances, a role that is not really his role, okay? And I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying the mechanics of it. And so, anyway, you get time commitment, you get each role, and its impact is going to determine the success of the organization. This is serious, and it's real, okay? And it's measured in terms of money, and to people paying this money, for results, okay? Simple. It looks on paper like nothing, but it's real, okay? It's got life. And then, so structuring something that's fair and relative on the board members, what they contribute and what their responsibilities are. So the select board, who's ever there, has got to deal with this, structuring something, to me, that would be fair enough to attract people. Because this gets really heavy further on in, what people are supposed to do. I'll get to that, and I don't want, you can cut me off anytime you want, and that's not a problem. But it's serious, to me, this thing is serious, that's all. Okay, so anyway, coming up with a fair structure for planning board members, chair, vice chair responsibilities, and corresponding, metrics of payment. Okay, so then on page 7, I skipped over to 342, and that one was what notes I had. The continuing education, on that one, I mean, I read through this thing. The board chair, with the assistance of the town manager, okay? So now we got these two items in concert here to develop a continuing education program. So with this, you know, somebody's got to give consideration to the cost of this thing. The funding, funds to train, the budget, travel fees, time commitment, you've been through it. It's hard to and then I said this, I said, these people are regular working people and they got a life, okay? So I think, I don't know. And then it's like, the time commitment, it's hard to balance in the regular duties while additional time is needed for education burden, and they have other jobs and responsibilities. So then I said, it's all relevant. All of this is relevant. The community may feel other areas of town budget more pressing. But this thing is mandating this stuff. You get it? You got it. Okay? You got to do it. Now, who's going to underwrite it? That's what you got to, that's becomes what erodes this thing. Okay? I'm not saying that, but that's my optic, okay?
Can I make a comment?
I'm sorry?
Can I make a comment?
Certainly.
So, everything's expensive. So isn't not educating people in their job. We've
That's
talked,
fair.
We've talked as a board and with the commission, along with some of the selectmen, and that we talked about onboarding people, is giving them the proper onboarding, whatever committee that you might be on. Maybe the planning board, introducing, the concepts. Because if you come in cold, hold on, when you come in cold, you have to learn all this stuff. And if you're learning it from somebody that hasn't been through it themselves, then you could be learning something the wrong way.
Right.
So hold on. So that would be the job of the town manager. So you're hiring this person, he's got the expertise to do that. So they're gonna come in, they're gonna set up a program, and go from there. So you have other resources like the Maine Municipal Association that has all those resources
Right.
available. That's what you pay them for, to do those things. So, I hear what you're saying about the cost, but.
No, I bring that up later in this thing,
Right.
in this quick thing here. But, it's no different than the military. You don't start at the top, you get a section, you go through it, you learn, okay?
Right.
There's no section, and I would safely take a gamble and say, I don't think anybody's read that MMA article, okay? Tell me if I'm wrong on the select board. Has anybody taken the steps to do that?
May I address you?
Absolutely.
So, continuing education is important, and everything
I'm not
that's,
saying it's not important.
everything that's listed here is something that you should already be doing when you come on board, whether it be as a
It's
select
not
board.
realistic.
Yeah, I did it.
Okay.
I did it myself.
Okay, that leads me back to the 66 people, if they work for the town, getting paid for the town, you're wiping out that resource of people from the resource pool in this town of 3,200 people that might want to serve on the boards, okay? You just cut that right off. Does that make sense?
No, I don't see how a town manager is gonna wipe that out.
No, what I'm saying, certain people, if you're collecting money, what it sounds like from the town, you can't serve on these other boards. You can't serve as a selectman.
If you're an employee of the town, you can't
Correct.
serve as selectman. And think about that.
But wait a
Think
minute,
about-
there's 66 people that fit that role.
Think about what a selectman does and what the authority of that selectman is. And you're,
I get into that.
what their authority is and what could potentially happen. Just on the news the other day, you heard of the person from Gray who embezzled money. Well, how'd that happen? No one was overseeing. I'm not saying that's gonna happen in this town, but as things get.
What's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
It's oversight is what it is. It's oversight. I'm talking about oversight.
Okay, I get it, I touch on that. I don't want to keep you guys here because have it on here. Okay, then, let's see, I had 3.5. and this was a big one to me. The board shall have the following enumerated powers, and just those powers and responsibilities granted, you know, so on and so forth. And they're going to appoint and be responsible for the discipline of the town manager. Okay, so what I saw with that one, from what I've seen, my experience has been, does this method actually necessarily enlist the interests of the town? Because I think there could be a conflict of interest, the person or the political motivator, okay? I think there could be political pressures, special interest groups that lean in on this, on a town manager, and I'm not sure there's the expertise needed to pick a person that's going to be for them to pick the person that's going to be the town manager. Maybe they have a concept that they're going to employ to do that. Okay, so, you know, does the town get the best choice by this limited resource of picking a town manager? Because it's a really big thing. It is to me. The other thing I think the select board leads itself up to is if the town manager, if his performance is lousy, it doesn't look good for the board. You know, they're riding solitaire here. So you get, the other thing I think you get perceived favoritism. The process isn't really transparent. It raises concern about nepotism, which he's talked about, favoritism, and then you get a breakdown in the public trust. I personally, what might be a better way is to set up a very clear objective criteria in full transparency, come up with a search committee. It was just like when they did the fire department, they came up with a group of people that were familiar, and they didn't have the presumption of knowledge. They had the knowledge to put together a plan and hire people and get the job done. So I think, you know, there was a lot of different layers of input on that there. And I think that this has got to be more inclusive to the community. And I said, also, I think if you form a search committee, it should be diverse. It should include elected officers, community members, and experts in public administration.
This doesn't stop that from happening. I mean, if the current board was going to search for...
That's correct. That's 100% correct, but it doesn't say anything about it.
This doesn't stop a search committee.
Yep.
And I would think any good board would put together a search committee.
You would think.
Just as they did for the fire chief and would do for other positions. And they would elicit the help of MMA. And the committee should be made of diverse groups. I mean, that's up to a good board to do that.
Okay, well, all I'm commenting is what I read. I didn't read this, what you just added.
They will appoint, and that's once a search committee recommends somebody, then it's the select board's job to appoint that person and inevitably hire them. But this doesn't say that the select board is gonna run through the whole process and pick who they want with those 5 people. This just says they will appoint them.
Okay, then there was just one little discipline thing on a town manager. Who might that be?
Where are you, Cortland? Where are you? Same-
Well, in the same paragraph,
Right.
3.5, appoint and be responsible for the discipline of the
Correct.
town manager. Okay, so in that regard, somebody, and it doesn't really enumerate that in here, something about, to me, a process or a procedure providing fairness and maintaining a transparency throughout the disciplinary process, which I know John is going to say, well, that's, you know, standard. But once again, leaving it up to certain, just a certain group, it doesn't seem to, what I see happening here, I don't know if it really includes the community as much as it should be with this. It seems, personally, to me, some of it is cut and dry. But
May I
anyway,
speak to that? May I speak to that?
absolutely.
So as, right now, the community is the legislative body. The legislative body votes in the executive body, which is the select board. The select board will choose their town manager, administrative assistant, however you want to term it. So within that process, the select board is responsible for many things that have to be carried out, and writing policies, updating policies, taking care of contracts, which they will, in turn, turn over to the town manager according to this charter to write, to review. They'll pass back to the select board to review those items. For internal policies, that is up to the select board how they're going to operate. When it comes to ordinances, like who's going to build what house where and all those
No, I
different things.
understand. I did pull that out of this. I do understand that, but go ahead.
And so there is a personnel policy, which is written, which is a human resource document, is an ongoing document, and it outlines it. And you better be following the law when it comes to personnel, human resources, or you'll have some issues.
Okay, let me interrupt on that one, and that's a good point. And what I picked up out of that, when you go through this thing, and you're going to get a structure to hire, and so on, I mean, you're going to measure the vision of the town, the needs of the town, the goals of the town, and you're going to try to get somebody groomed that can interact with all the different departments and personnel and worry about HE, right? Okay. Well, that individual is going to know more than anybody on the board.
Correct.
Okay. So if that isn't really handled with kid gloves, and there is a conflict, and we've got into deep waters where there's a problem, the town manager comes in one day and says, I'm done with this, and I've been abused too much, and for $100,000 I'll go away. Okay? That happens all the time.
Well, yes, that can happen.
That happens all the time.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen in municipalities. It's going to happen in private industries.
I'm just trying to bring emphasis on the seriousness.
So let me make a point to your point. A good board chairman will probably be doing most of the communication, because my past experience, if you've got 3, 4, 5 members of a board, and you've got all 4 or 5 of them telling one person something different, the board needs to work together, work through the chairman.
In a perfect world, I get that.
In a perfect world, yes, that happens. And in perfect world, those things can happen here now, the things that you're talking about.
Right, I did mention that. No, thank you for that, I appreciate that, but, okay, so, this one really threw me, but I did have some help, and I think I got it. 310, page 10, 310. And this answers a lot of questions, I think. This Steve one. All right, it's the last sentence, and I got it in my own words, but it said, except the extent inconsistent with the charter, no ordinances or policy in effect at the date of enactment or amendment of this charter is repealed by the adoption of amendment of the same. So, in other words, to me, I got it that the new charter will not automatically invalidate or replace existing ordinances or policies unless it specifically says so. And I see that nowhere in here. So you're bringing the old world forward, turning the page to a new charter and new ground rules, the 9 commandments. Does that make sense? That's how I read it.
Yeah, what's there is going, unless we specifically state it, that, like, right now, we have a recall ordinance out on the books. The recall ordinance is written in detail in here. That replaces that current ordinance. And then we also reference the, regarding no employee of the town. We've referenced that in here. We're stating that knows that. But anything else, if it's not stated in here specifically, shall stay in place.
Well, I mean, and that's, you know, the ramifications in the community. There's a lot of concern, well, you know, we're getting all this, you know, this and that. Well, really, you're bringing a lot forward, but you really are piling on a lot of new, too. You know, with these mandates and these people in these offices, because this is out here glaring and everybody can see it, people are going to be really held accountable. Do you want this office? I mean, it's almost like the wall is so hard to climb that I ain't touching that. You know what I mean?
I don't look at it that way.
Oh, okay.
You need to be held accountable for everything that you do.
Right.
Every step you take.
No, I get that.
You put your left foot forward, you should be accountable for it.
That's a.
And currently, all the employees, elected and hired employees of this town, follow Maine State statutes. There's really not that much added. What's changing, and I understand it, is that there'll be elected positions becoming appointed positions. That's probably your major change. Everything else in this charter, the town should be doing now.
That is, and that's what I talked about earlier, that I don't see eye to eye with that, but that's just me. I'm not, you know, I think that there's something on how that's carried out, you know, how that appointment is done. But I'm not being fair to you guys. I think I got my last thing, so here we go. 4.1, page 13. And it was the administration of the town and the town employees. All I did with that one, town manager, right? There's really a concentration of power in this individual. There's a huge amount of power in this individual. And so I just come up with a few drawbacks that I thought might be, you know, putting on a town manager in some ways. I thought it might be overwhelming. It might be an overburdening to the person. And at that point, if you don't spot it, you start getting inefficiencies going, okay? You start getting poor decisions making. And so, like I said, I think this is packed with a lot. The town manager can possibly get spread too thin. And I don't see where, when the town manager has this kind of vested power, there's any real checks and balances. I just don't see that concept.
The check and balance on the town manager is the select board.
Okay.
And any employee who has a grievance with their town manager that falls under the town manager has the grievance process stated in the personnel policy.
Yeah.
So that will take, so when you use the word power or authority.
Concentration of power. That's what it is.
So in anybody that's a manager is responsibility. I would use the word responsibility, and I'm not being, I can't say it on TV. It's going to be a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. In concert, town manager with the select board, a very high level, high performing select board, because this town manager, like I said, whoever it is going to be educated and versed and very good. This is their profession. This isn't a vocation with these people. They've gone to school. They've got credentials. So, you know, they're going to probably be able to navigate around anything Limerick would have to deal with. That's all I'm saying.
Oh.
Okay?
Yes.
That's just, I don't know. So anyway, the overburdening and the checks and balances ends up wrong decisions I had. And sure, the other leader would have input, which is the select board, this, really good select board.
Let me give you a positive note about the charter. Let's give a positive note. Right now, or I used to hear all the time, and I don't know if they have them now, about having employee staff meetings and things like that, and you'll hear complaints about, well, they didn't tell us this and they didn't tell us that. If you have a focal point, you have your, because right now, if the board wants to have a staff meeting, and all 5 of them are there, it has to be televised. Well, no staff member wants to be televised on TV if they have a grievance, now do they? Because it's personal to them. So if you have a town manager that an employee can go to in private, close the door, discuss what they have to discuss, and maybe the situation will be done and over with. Now, I'm probably speaking Pollyanna-ish, but
I like that.
but that's how it would work.
No, I understand.
And I
the
think that's
mechanics
fair it'll be fair to employees of the town to have that opportunity. They don't have it now. They can have meetings, but they have a meeting with one board member.
Right, so, with the last, it was pretty much the risk of bias, personal bias, because we all have personal bias, whether you like it or not. And, that they can affect fairness in management employment with people, and they need adequate support, the clear policies, who's ever going to set those down, accountability, and so on. So, thank you for my rant to listen,
Thank you.
and you've done a great job of proposing this thing, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Merrill? Merrill?
Merrill Farron. Thank you for having listened last time I was here and making changes in the charter that I hope will be constructive.
Yes.
I don't know, these are minor, there's a few minor things that are in there, like you mentioned typos, and I just tried to go through this new thing because I picked up a copy last week from in front, and apparently it's been corrected since, but it doesn't look like these were corrected. And they're minor, but I want to bring them forward because it seems like they're not getting fixed from copy to copy. So 212, B1, I think that it's missing either a word or it needs to be changed. The verbiage needs to be changed.
212?
212, B1.
Yeah.
Various appropriations and expenditure articles comprise the annual budget. I think you either want to say that comprise or comprising the annual budget, unless I'm missing something, and I've read it so many times that I can't see how that flows or says something correct.
Probably should say are comprised of the annual budget, or
Town meeting shall from the floor act on the following warrant articles, the various appropriations and expenditure articles. I thought that comprised the annual budget or
delete those,
comprising the annual budget.
delete comprise the budget.
Well, changed, I just think the verbiage needs to be changed because
Yeah.
it's not clear to me what that is saying, so just might want to look at that.
I would just have the various appropriation expenditure articles, or expenditures, appropriations and expenditures, because you already talked about articles.
Next is 225, real simple. Main needs an E at the end of it and under A. 226, there's a second sentence, commencing on, at the end of the current term. I think it's on or at. I don't think two words are needed there. It's confusing unless you want to put a slash in there.
Go back to 2.2.5.
225, A.
A, yeah.
Maine Municipal Association, it's missing the E.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
It's minor, I know.
Oh, yeah, get rid of the word
Get rid of one.
Did you get 226, what I was saying on that one?
2, yeah, and or.
Okay. And at, or on at.
On or at.
2.4, you seem to be repetitive, and I looked at the new thing, and it's still in there, that A and B has the same line about if they intentionally violate any express provisions of the charter, it's in A, or are convicted of a crime, and it's also in B. So I think somehow, at least in the form I was looking at, they're on different pages, so people may not have picked up on it, although it's on the same page in the newest one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Take out G.
I think there's one more, but I'll see if I come across it in the...
Yeah, thank you
Oh.
for that.
713. That's the last line in that paragraph. After treasurer, it says in. I think it is meant to be and. But maybe I'm wrong, again. Because I think they're looking at all the treasurer stuff as well as all the other accounts, but I could be wrong about it. It looked like that kind of thing. So comments that I have that are outside the grammatical.
Yep,
things that
thanks.
I thought about. I actually really enjoyed hearing Mr. Alexander's suggestion that it be part of the charter that the public participate in the hiring of a town manager. This is going to be a very difficult situation to get this approved. People are seeing this as a major change, and maybe it's going to be very popular. Maybe not. I mean, we all have heard our own stuff on this. And perhaps a reassurance to the community is to have some public participation put into it that is not assuming a good board is going to do it, but putting it into the charter because people always have doubts. And it's not that easy to make a change, because we asked last time about there having been some discussion about going to a three-man or a three-person board. I apologize. A three-person board, again. Looking at it that you are now going to have a town manager who has a major amount of the workload taken off the board. And I agree with what Ms. Andrews said last time. Everyone has lots of phone calls and things that we don't know about that are happening, but that's what the town manager is, to reduce that workload. It's also expenditure savings when you're going to be adding a new employee. And it's not as simple as it sounded in the beginning of this meeting. Well, people can just go ahead and put forward another article to change things. Because when I read this, you either are going to wait 5 years for a new commission to be done, so 5 more years of 5 people. The board could bring it up themselves. Most boards don't say, let's make ourselves different. So I just think that's very an unlikely occurrence. And unusually, you have a higher requirement if the public decides to move forward and request an amendment. They have to go and get 30% of the population that voted at the last gubernatorial election, not 10% as you've done for everything else in here. So I'm not quite sure where that magic 30 came from, but it's not as simple as all the other changes that you can make in town. It makes this much more look like a significantly binding document. When we make this happen, this is set. It's concrete. It's not going to change. So I disagree with the comments made earlier that the townspeople can just try to change things. It's not as simple by the way you put the rules in here. So.
No, it's not as simple, but it can be changed. And it's going to be I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's going to be a process. There's going to be a review process going through this. I mean, everything from my point of view, and I believe some of the other members of this commission, is that these are things that should already be in place, but that people aren't being held accountable for them. You know, all of these rules and
Well, I think there are many positive things in here, so
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you about some of the other parts. I'm talking about this one particular issue that was stated, that going from
Yeah.
a 5 to 3-person board would be simple. The public comes forward and says
Yeah.
they want to do that. It's not simple.
No, it's not that simple.
It is not simple and shouldn't be implied that way, and you're trying to have success at getting this charter to pass.
Yeah.
And no one's going to go reading it as much as a handful of us or several handfuls of us, and they're all going to have what they can do for a quick review, and hopefully good education will come from some public source. However, I mean, I don't even know if it's worthwhile to delay when you vote on this and ask the town in November instead. Something simple like, would you prefer this board, if we have a town manager, become a 3-member board or something? Because I see it as a major stumbling block to you getting success at passing this. You spent a whole lot of time on this.
Well,
I just wanted, it's a suggestion because
let me,
I have no other power than to say,
let me make a comment to your suggestion, because I had already spoken to another member regarding going from 5 to 3, because that seems to be our biggest contention, is a 5-member board with a manager. And my initial thoughts was that there's going to be a transition period of a manager, having this manager, and if you drop down to 3, is that person going to be aided as much as they had 5? That was my thought on my thought process of keeping it at 5. And then so you could institute in the charter to say the board shall remain 5 until the next term, or drop down to 3, however we could word it appropriately.
correct. You mentioned at the last meeting that I was at, so I hope that one idea could be to be the natural attrition of when a term expires, that reduces it down to 3. The structure of what you have written here is 5.
Right.
Black and white 5, no exceptions.
No exceptions to the rule, and it could be written so that, because we in March have 2 people that are coming off the board, and we could just say now, 3-member board, we can change it.
So I'm just wondering if it's better to poll the public in some way, shape, or form before you put this big document out.
No.
And all your time succeeds, or
Because that is one of the big bones of contention, is keeping a 5-member board with a manager, which is true. Financially, it would be a burden to the town. And then also you look into the dynamics of how many chiefs do I have to have? A new manager coming on. Are they gonna want 5 people? And I said it earlier, telling them what to do. There has to be a focal point in this whole process of who that they should really talk to one from the board, a discussion with the board itself. You see what I'm trying to say? But we can meet again, and we as a commission can discuss it in more great detail.
thank you.
I just had a comment. I had 12 years' experience sitting on the board, and with everything that's going on now, all the laws, everything, 5 people will give much more varied ideas than just 3. Because if you've got a 3-person board and one really isn't all that into it, then you're down to 2. And for the work that is involved, and there's a lot of work, I think that our current board is being paid $86 a week. And I think the difference of, $12,000 a year for those other 2 people, I think they will earn their pay and also give more varied ideas than just having 3. But from experience, 3 isn't anywhere near enough, not with what's going on in this world today.
But we've got to put into that factor, Joanne, I know this is a public hearing, but we have to factor in that, by listening to everybody, factor in that you're going to have a town manager who's going to, a lot of what the board's currently doing now, they're responsible for human resources, they're responsible for policies, they're responsible for the annual budget, they're responsible for general assistance, everything that you can think of, it lands on them. They're going to give authority to this town manager to do certain things, but they're still gonna have to pass other things to the board, and it's outlined in here, and it's outlined in the personnel policy, who's responsible for what. And I feel that if you, 5 people is a lot of people on the board. And I think three could command it just as well as 5. I just talking in circles.
Variety of opinion. One other thing I would say about boards, having been on boards before, when you have executives who the boards look to give them material, it tends to be what you're spoon-fed from them when you don't have a ton of time is what you tend to vote on. And it's sad to say that, but it's really hard. I don't know how anyone could do the job as it is now. I don't know how even if someone spoon feeds me, I'm going to assure that I find all the other objective data that's out there that I need to know to make a great decision. I mean, we all know nowadays there's no Walter Cronkite out there telling us data and this is it, and you can now make your decision because you've learned all the facts.
Right, see, right now, we have a secretary who's doing a lot of the work of a town manager or an administrative assistant. She's keeping them on task. And when you don't have that person keeping, like for myself, when I was on the board, I worked 40 hours a week. I was away from home 50 hours a week. I had a couple of people to take care of my family that were ill. So there was a lot to do, and it was great to have somebody keeping you on task. If you have a really good manager or someone who will tell you, okay, now you can go to the bathroom, now you need to do this, to remind you of what you're supposed to be voting on. And if that manager brings to you on a Monday night meeting, which you hope they won't catch you, blindside you and say, oh, we got to discuss the grass out on the lawn tonight. Well, maybe you're not prepared for that. You're prepared for other things that were already on the agenda. But there.
I think if it can fit into a time frame that works, I'd like to see this have a town manager start out with 5. And then give him a year and cut it back to 3 the following year. I think 5 would give him time to get his feet wet, get a variety of information from different people that he'd be working with on a regular basis. I think once he or she gets into the position and, feel solid, I think at that point 3 would be plenty. And if I'm not mistaken, in 2 more years, there's 2 people up. So I think it could work so that 2 people fall off automatically.
As I mentioned earlier, you can write the articles to state when this charter goes into effect, there shall be, you could say something to the effect that the 2 that are expiring in 2026, is it? Shall return to a 3-member board. That's how you could write something to that effect. Off the top of my head, I'm not ready for it.
Yeah, I think, I'm not opposed, I think it should end up at 3 at some point. I think 5's too many, especially if there is a competent town manager. Starting with 5 isn't a bad thing.
Right, so if it's going to be written, we want to do it now because you don't want to have to get another commission together.
Absolutely. So I know you're still meeting and you're still
Yes.
making some revisions.
Yep.
I'm just giving you my opinion.
Oh, thank you.
Can be done that way too, to satisfy.
You have? Okay. Want to make sure everybody gets up. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody. This is my first time here, and I just want to learn what's going on, and hopefully you see me more often, and then I'll be able to come up and give some more informed thoughts. But I like the process, and all things should be considered. You just can't use somebody's bias to to exclude them and their opinions, and so I really like this process.
And your name is?
My name's Jamie Fernandez.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was going through my mind.
Portland, you had something else?
Run now, run.
Just something quick if that's possible. You know, as you mentioned, many things fall on the shoulders of the select board now, this, and this. But if you, depending on your structure, you know, there's a matrix of different assignments to different people that can do it. So then you get the group of people that said, well, if we have 5 selectmen and they're doing their job, is there really a need for the town to have a manager? Okay, and I know it was voted on to explore it, so you're in the exploratory thing, but the elephant in the room becomes, what's the cost of this thing? Anybody put an average price tag on this, where that's gonna go? And it's another, expense, which, drags its way to the bottom line of taxes. That's,
Yep. Well taken. Anybody else? Good.
There again, it's a small town, would you say 3,200 people. Are we ready for a charter? I mean, we've gotten along, we've got a lot on our plate this year. We've got a new fire department, we've done the water, and taxes are going up, and manager is not gonna be no cheap thing to do. It's gonna add to our taxes. I don't know whether the town is big enough or ready for a charter. Maybe in a few years, but we need to have our people, our voters, our taxpayers, make decisions that this charter will take away from us. We will lose a lot of the power that we have in the town now and lay it into laps of people that just are going to do it. And I just don't think at this time that the people are ready, the taxpayers. They want to have their fingers in the decisions on who runs, our tax collector, treasurer, and Dee, town clerk. We voted on for years. It's just a small town, it's homey, it's ours. We should be able to say who we're gonna hire and not just have who, if the charter is passed, all of that's taken away from us. A certain few people are gonna decide who's gonna run this, who's gonna do this, who's, whatever. I don't think the town's ready for it, maybe not. And they were talking about corporate. Well, this certainly will turn the town corporate. Let's see, the select board members, 3, 5, they all have their duties to do, and if you add the town manager, why have them? The town manager can do whatever. They're just, the selectman's just going to advise. So I think with the selectmen and no town manager, no charter, this town is doing quite well by itself. It's just not the time for it. I believe it's a lot of stuff in here that we haven't even gone over, that people are gonna find out, oh, had I known that, I wouldn't have voted for it. Oh, gee, why did they take that power away from me? It's just too quick, too much for a small town to do and be comfortable with, my opinion.
May I address that? I mean, so you're saying that the legislative body's gonna lose a lot. Right now, the legislative body votes for 5 selectmen, and those 5 selectmen already do that process that you spoke of. They take care of, they're empowered to do these things, to write policies, to do contracts. So all of that is within their authority to do, and it was vested to them by the legislative body. So the townspeople aren't losing anything in that respect. You're going to have a town manager that comes under the direction of the select board, and they're going to help keep them organized. They're not gonna write the policy, they're gonna write a policy, according to this, they will write a policy, but it has to go through the select board first before it's even put out on the website, before, that decision is made. And most policies are internal operational items. Ordinances are voted on town-wide, so they can't go change an ordinance or anything like that. And I think, for myself personally, it will streamline a lot of things. And the people did vote to have a charter put together, and that's what we're doing today.
And once it's all, like I said, I mean, there's a lot, I thought, when I come up here, I was making all my little notes. I thought we were gonna go through each section so we can be explained. I mean, there's so much in here that people haven't, you know, I mean, you did your notes, Cortland. You went through it quite, you know, explicitly. But, you know, there's people out there listening now. I thought the public hearing would be, okay, this section here, I mean, half of them you could go through in 3 seconds, but it should have gone through so people understand there's so much in there that I've read it, I've gone, skimmed it twice today, and still I haven't got an idea. And to your point, if the selectmen's gonna do, the select board are going to do this, this, and this, and then turn it over to the town manager, why do we need the town manager? The select board's been doing fine.
Because it keeps things running in an organized manner, okay? That's how I perceive it. I'm a VP of a credit union. I have, you know, I tell people, I don't tell them what to do, I ask them to do it in this day and age.
Right.
But you have things that you have to do personally. You're responsible for a bigger picture of things.
How large is your credit union?
20 million,
We got 3,200.
you know?
I mean, you know,
No, 20,
we're not
20 million,
ready.
$20 million, 1,700 members. I've worked for institutions that were 100 million and, you know, tens and thousands of members, of people. So it's what you feel you can do and what the select board's gonna have to decide what it is they really need in that town manager, because they're going to set the job description.
There again, the town is small. Maybe this will work a few years from here, but at this point in time, I don't think we're big enough for a charter.
John?
I mean, the need for a town manager is so obvious. Let me give you the past 2 days. I'll give you 2 days, and Cortland's right. You know, for whatever reason, my phone rings. And with all due respect to my fellow select people, their numbers are on the site just like mine are. So if somebody's got a problem, there's 5 different of us you can call. The people in this building, they know there are 5 different people they can call. I'll give you my last 2 days in a nutshell. Librarians putting on a show, something out front with the kids. Somebody volunteered to bring a pony. So she wanted to make sure she could have the pony here. Who did she, you know, she saw me and said, you know, so we brainstormed, and we figured out and said, yeah, as long as it's part of the library piece, okay, pony should be fine. Make sure it's under the purview of the library. She's not getting paid to bring the pony, right? Volunteer. Our insurance will be okay. Treasurer's chair is too big for her. She wants to buy a new chair. She called me and asked me if she could buy it. I saw her. She said, can I buy a chair? I said, well, we got money in for that. I said, if the chair is really that bad, I don't think anybody's going to argue you buy a chair. Now, let's look at the few buoys that are down here by the beach, okay? Buoy, you know, there was sticks, there was the swim area. Wade went down and pulled out all the brush, all the trees that were there, but now the buoys are a mess. Right? Who instructs somebody to get those buoys? Whose job is that? Who's supposed to do? I don't know. Got a call from the bank today. I don't know, the loan for the fire station, our construction period is coming to an end. How are we going to deal with it? Well, who deals with that? I don't know, I mean, is it something, we're not, we can't run this town in 2 hours on a Monday night, because it would be 7 hours on a Monday night. Things are happening every day on an hourly basis that people are looking for answers for. Whether they're looking to just cover themselves, that's fine, they want to get some approval. Someone needs to be in charge. And quite honestly, they need to right this ship. Because we're struggling in a lot of areas. And people may not know it. Some people probably see it. You can say it's not a business. Well, it's $7.5 million. Show me any business that doesn't have somebody in charge that's $7.5 million. This job, I believe within its second year will pay for itself. Through savings, cuts in a lot of areas, the opportunity to get grants for things that we're paying for, what's that?
Legal fees.
Legal fees, streamlining things. I mean, Cheryl, I was shocked to hear you stand here and say, boy, the town's doing great. For several years, we're in great shape.
I said without the charter. I didn't say we were in great shape, we're not. But
I misunderstood you.
If the select board doesn't want to be bothered or called, then the work should be distributed between the 5 of you, and a chairman does this, and if you don't like the job, don't run for it. It's simple.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And until we've discussed the town manager, I don't think you've ever heard myself or any of my other fellow select board members saying, hey, this is too much work, this is too much. This is now the time with the dollars we're spending and the number of people we do have and the things that are going on and the 66 employees that we are talking about. Ship needs a captain, simple as that. And this will do that.
Thank you, John. Cortland?
Yeah, I feel that this was an exploratory move to get a reaction, and that people are all over the spectrum. Personally, as I said earlier, you've composed a powerful document, and I think there's enough intelligence in this town to make this work if there's strict adherence to some broad rules, governing getting the right person. I'm sure the right person is out there. The trick is finding them, okay? And as John said, I think you're gonna have a situation of cost avoidance versus expense. You're gonna be in a reactionary position. We've been in a reactionary position. I think it'll put you in an anticipatory position. You can stay ahead of the problems with this sort of setup here. And I think that's critical. And, a member of the board may be a grounding rod, and it gets down to really quality of leadership, okay, and distribution of responsibilities. And it's an everyday laborious pain in the neck. But you get in the saddle and you do it. And if you can put it together, and I think this town can, there's more at risk here than a box of marbles. It's the future of the town. And so for those reasons, I think that the town is ready. There is an expense, but as he said, I think it's going to be in the black before you know it, and there's going to be a lot of fires put out before they become real problems. So thank you.
Let me respond to that. So we're coming upon budget season. Here's a good example. Budget season process is very an arduous job, okay? Because you have five select board members, you have 5 budget committee members, and then you have to work with all the departments. So, and I'm not saying anything's getting eliminated by having a town manager, but the town manager will be the gatherer and organizer of all that information, working in conjunction with the treasurer to get this information and put the budget together to bring forward to the board. Right now, there have been years that we've raised and appropriated too much money. And so you've added to the tax line. okay? So if you have someone who is, got the thumb on the dike and can see everything that's happening, every invoice that's taken place, they sit on a Monday night, you sit on a Monday night and you review the invoices, and you do miss things, you do make mistakes. Well, a town manager will help avoid some of those errors and cut costs in that area. That's my feeling on it. You can say we're not ready now, you can say we're not ready in 10 years. When are we going to be ready? We should be ready now, preparing ourselves, because it doesn't mean that the moment this, if and when this passes, that you're going to have a town manager tomorrow. You know, it's gonna take, it could take 6 months.
It takes to compose and structure things
Yep.
to go push it. And I understand about your accounting and your, the budget committee. I mean, that's all control at the ballot box anyway, yes, no.
Right, the budget, the final budget is, but what is being presented,
I mean,
what is being
the
presented.
formula is there, there's enough in the cookie jar for emergencies, et cetera, and the
Right.
town, the town should have X amount of surplus.
Correct.
And, so that the taxpayers can keep functioning in their world.
Right.
I get that.
You know, and so the select board has been tasked with writing a job description for this town manager. And my recommendation is to go through this charter and bullet point everything that mentions a town manager to go into that job description, and anything else that they can think of that may not be listed in here. Because you want,
I mentioned that earlier.
huh?
No, I understand, I thought I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, well, you did, and they do have in their possession a job description that I did put together. I forwarded it to Katie.
It's just inclusivity from a town, so, people have to feel a part of this organization.
They're going to be, they're going to be a part of it.
You're here tonight, and I'm guilty of it. I just read the final,
No.
or tried to pour through that today, somewhat, and I said, wow, this is big. When you start pouring into it, maybe I'm pouring
Let's,
into it too.
you know one thing, you can be an optimist or you can be a pessimist, okay? And I'm not saying you're either. An optimistic person, an optimistic person's going to look at the whole town and say, they understand what they're voting for. I would never call anybody stupid when they're voting for something.
No, I call myself ignorant.
You know,
I don't have a problem with that.
I would not do that.
Okay, well.
The average person in this town understands what they're voting for, and they're gonna either vote it up or vote it down. Because when they understand it, and when they don't, they don't. And I
Thank
don't
you,
do
Corbin.
that.
Can I quickly try to alleviate maybe one concern? Katie's here, so 2/5 of the board is here. If this votes and goes through in November, the current board would be the one starting the process to hire the town manager. I would certainly advocate for the same type committee that we use for the fire department. So it would be 1 or 2 members from the board, some members from the community, another elected official, and an employee or something. We would put together a combination of stakeholders. I would advocate for that. We'd have to get 3 votes for that, and I think Katie would agree that that's the way to go, I'm hoping. So I think we can put that concern to bed. If this goes through, the current board we won't have to worry about what another board will do.
Well,
This board will be doing that.
the charter doesn't say all the charter says that you will be the select board is responsible for the appointment of the manager, and how you go about it is.
And I agree, and because there's been concern about how that process is gonna happen, we know if this passes, we know who the 5 board members are gonna be, and 2 of us are here tonight. So if 2 of us agree that we think that's the way we're gonna go, I think, I don't see any reason the board would go any other way, because it was the same board that went with the fire chief, and this is
Just expand
as
that
important.
water, casting in that water, it's.
Yeah, I think we had 9 people for the fire chief to start, and that's it was a big group, and it gives a broad spectrum of all the stakeholders, and I think it would work.
Cortland, if I can address your concern, is most times, most communities, when they're gonna hire a manager, in most cases, they do a search. Some small communities might use townspeople, bigger cities might just do internal, whether through a city council or a city board. And then they bring that person in, they interview them, they probably have criteria they want them to meet. And then they usually bring, some communities actually bring 1 or 2 or 3 candidates in to meet the people. They do a meet and greet.
Yeah, all I'm saying is to break down the wall.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
You know, make them inclusive, because, like I said, this is a pivotal issue in this town, a new direction, with, you know, new focus. And for that reason, that's the only reason I.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Thank you.
Because you gotta, if you build walls between, you know, those holding the reins, and those running the stage, you got a problem. So, I mean, that's what I think, I don't know.
Our intention is not to build a wall.
No,
our
you gotta be
attention-
careful and
Right.
sensitive that you don't do
The-
it unintentionally.
You know,
That's the point.
the intention is to
I know, but
have
you
a
gotta process
well-working,
it.
functional machine. It's not saying that the machine's not working now, but get it working better. What's wrong with greasing those cogs? Nothing. Nothing.
2 questions. Once this is accepted, we're voting on the charter and we're going all through this. If a few years down the road, it's not something that's working well with the town, can it be rescinded? Or is it stuck?
There would be there'd have to be another commission established.
Right.
They'd have to take a look at what's working and what's not. In most cases, they try to address what's not working and readdress it in a form of fixing the language or, you know. And that usually happens when a town manager lists some 3 or 4 things on one thing, because there's, if you look at any charter, you go to any website, charter revisions, like every 3 or 5 years. And we've been told that, give it 5 years, let work some of the bugs out of it, so that's how it is. Another commission would have to be started, you'd have to get 9 different people to do that, and, from what I gather from the people that come in a second time, they have a very difficult time getting people to wanna do this.
Yeah.
This has been a great board to work with, great people, a lot of back and forth, a lot of hard work, a lot of conversations.
A lot of stuff in here to
There is
comprehend.
a lot of information here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technical stuff, but we didn't invent this. This is stuff that's already happening in town right now.
But in the hour and a half that we've been here, we could have started from page 1. So whoever's listening or interested in what's going on to go by, and we could have gone over each section and clarified, rather than me picking Cortland, whoever picking little pieces out that they're concerned about. And is that going to be done, there'd be another public hearing
No,
before?
there's three public hearings.
This is our third.
There will be
There won't be another one?
We've had 2 public hearings where we went through the entire charter.
Right. Yeah, we had 2.
Each individual
Yes,
step?
yes.
Yes,
But things have been changed,
All, grammar,
tweaked.
okay?
you know, nothing drastic has been changed. Pretty much. We found some things, and we found some things tonight that need to be addressed, So, let me answer your question if I can. There is a final document that has to be written, so it's explanatory in nature, so each one of these articles will have an explanation of what its intent is. So that's being developed right now.
And Wendy, no one's accusing anyone in this town
I
of being
didn't take it that way.
stupid. But this is a lot to comprehend, even for college people. I mean, if you're gonna sit down here and go through some of them, you know, you have to read 3 times and still not quite sure how it's written. I mean, why can't it be written in simple English?
Well, first of all, I wasn't calling anybody stupid. The average, the person.
That was brought up that, you know, about voting for it or not voting for it.
So, good. Thank you. That concludes the third public hearing for the Charter Commission. We want to thank everybody for their input. This was some really good dialogue tonight, and we will be making those corrections on that and putting those documents together as we move forward here. We probably have a couple of meetings amongst ourselves before we have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, because we want to get some feedback from all 5 of those at some meeting. So we're going to make any revisions. We are going to meet with the board, as I said, We have to send this document off to our attorney in the final draft, and then we have to do the final report that has to be presented and for the board to put this on the ballot for November. So, thank you again, everybody. Good night.